Welcome to episode 5, Watts Table Talk. I'm Grandpa Kevin, as you guys probably well know. We've got Jaron Hayden and Mason Watts. And today we're coming to you live. Well, one of us is from beautiful downtown Mazatlan, Mexico, where it's 25 degrees and a little bit cloudy today, but not bad. So today's episode, we're going to talk about school, the importance of schooling, hopefully, and work. So because this is my week to lead it off, I just wanted to maybe just go through my work history a little bit. That should take up like quite a bit of the time. You guys can kind of jump in whenever you feel like it, and then we'll let you guys talk about your sort of experiences. Right? Is that fair?
That's fair.
Yeah.
That works.
Okay. So my very first job, I remember I delivered the Edmonton Journal when I was like maybe 14. I had Uncle Brian and I think we had 60 or 70 houses on our route, and you delivered every day but one. I think it was Monday they didn't have a journal, and they were thick, like they were huge, these huge thick things, and we used to have to carry these big sacks on our shoulders, these 60 or 70, and we did all of Pine or 3/4 of Pine Street. So that was my first job, and it was like, I don't know, it was like you made like $1.20 a week or something for packing winter, summer, fall, no days off, whatever. Then
Jeez.
yeah, I know, eh? And then and then between grade 10 and 11, I got a job on the pipeline. I think it was only like 15. Yeah, 15. And a cousin of my mom's was a foreman for a pipeline. And so I thought I'd like to give that a try. But what happened was I had told them that I had to go back to school and write my final exams. So I had 2 week break before the end of school and the final exam. So I went out in the pipeline for 2 weeks, worked my butt off, but I never made so much money. It was amazing. So I went home to write the exams, and my mom's cousin, who was the foreman, forgot to tell the guys that I was going to be gone for a week. So they rehired somebody. So
Oh, jeez.
they did not have a job for the rest of the summer between grade 10 and 11. And then in those days, like jobs were hard to come by. And Sherwood Park was probably 5,000 or 6,000 people. There was no restaurants, there was no 7-Elevens to work at. There was one gas station or two gas stations. So it wasn't really a lot of opportunity for summer employment. Then during grade 11, I got a job. A friend, his dad worked at a place making tent trailer tops for hardtop tent trailers. So I did that one day during the week and Saturdays. So I had that job, and I think I was like $1.25 an hour or something like that, which was okay back then. And then between grade 11 and 12, my girlfriend at the time, her dad was foreman for the company, did all the maintenance work for CN Rail. So he got me a job, probably because he wanted me away from his daughter for the summer. I'm sure, in fact, I know that was part of the reason. So my first 2 weeks, I went out to out of Hinton somewhere, repairing some track, and then for some reason they moved me and her. Marty's older brother and a friend were on the same crew as me, so they moved us to Jasper. So I had a job in the Jasper yards for 6-7 weeks in summer. It was kind of Monday to Friday, and then we drove home for the weekends. But we lived in camp cars that were on rails, and if they needed a maintenance like 10 kilometers, they would just hook up an engine to our whole train and take us out to wherever we were needed. But mostly the work was right in the Jasper rail yards. And if you've ever been to Jasper, there's like 10 or 12 sets of tracks. We were in the farthest one away. It was the summer of 71, something like that. Those days, hitchhiking was huge. There was hundreds and hundreds of hitchhikers outside of Jasper going across Canada, whatever. You'd get up in the morning and they'd be lined up for kilometers in every direction hitchhiking. But at nights was crazy because they gave the hitchhikers, if you played a set in the bar, if you knew how to play guitar, they'd give you a beer and a burger.
Ooh.
So you had like literally all night. And I would think I was only 16. I hadn't turned 17 yet. But still got in the bars. There was just so packed that nobody cared. But so I did that for 6 or 7 weeks. And it was the most fun summer I've ever had. You can imagine, a whole world full of transient youths hanging out. And I had to go to work every day from 8 to 4:30, and then I'd hurry back to the camp and have a shower and go hang out in the bars in the evening, just to hang out with people from all around the world. Right? It was really an amazing summer. Then back to grade 12, back to the part-time job, working building tent covers. The end of grade 12, so I graduate again. Not a lot of jobs going on in Alberta at that time. That was 1972. Got a job. So Ken Warbitz, my buddy, his uncle lived east of Sherwood Park on a horse ranch, and he was building the barn. So he hired me to help build the barn. I worked there for maybe 3 months. Then my first real big job. Mid-November, I get a job at the Swift's Premium where they make butterball turkeys. So they're the slaughterhouse. And I'm working in the defeathering machine, if you can believe this. And it was gross. No. It was cold out, and I had to clean out the defeathering machine and take the feathers out, and I was covered in guts. And I remember I'd go home in the evening and Mom would say, "You can't sit down to the dinner table till you have a shower." I'd have feathers and stuff hanging out of my hair and guts. So I did that. And that was because of the Christmas rush for turkeys, right? So I did that for like a month or so. Mm-hmm. And then again, hard to find work. So me and a buddy found a job in January, siding condo buildings. It was at like just past Southgate Mall is where White Mud ended in those days. And it was just there, just in Terwillegar. White Mud didn't go around Fox Drive or anything in those days. It just ended. So I was around there, worked for a whole month, and it was 35 below and never got paid. The guy skipped out, ran out, didn't pay us for the first 2 weeks. And then he said, "Well, no, it's coming. I'm just waiting to get paid." And then he took off. We never got one red nickel for a month working outside. Then another buddy of mine was working in a welding shop on 50th Street. So I got a job, finally my first permanent job starting February 1st. And I think I started at like $1.75 an hour. We were working, it was cold, but we had one big outdoor shop building a ship. And then we had an indoor shop building a whole bunch of stuff welding. So I was just a grunt and working, I think the first 3 months, never had a day off in 3 months, worked 10 or 12 hours a day, drank for 6 hours a day and slept for 6 hours a day.
Oh my God.
So then this older guy, he says he's looking for a roommate. He just moved from Calgary up. So I said, "Yeah, I'll move." I had never lived away from home before. So we got an apartment on 101st Ave and Dwayne Gretzky. I don't know, I think there's a car dealership or something there. We were on the 3rd floor of this scungy old apartment building. He had lost his license. So I had an old car that the engine finally went on, and we had somebody else pick us up on the way to work. But it was, so anyway, first job, I worked there for till July, and then decided the family had moved to Kamloops. So I decided, I'm going to quit, and because I missed the family, and I'm going to move out to Kamloops. So I go out there, and my dad had bought it was called Holiday Rental Car, and they were a rental car company, sort of like Tilden or Hertz or whatever. Mm-hmm. They originated in Ontario, and he bought a franchise for Kamloops. So Shelley was working there already. Brian was working there part-time. He was going to school, and he was working at the Robo Car Wash. So I move out there, spent the month of August, I think, just kind of bumming around, helping my dad. Brian got me a job at Robo Car Wash. It only lasted 3 days. Uh,
Why did it only last 3 days?
because I actually got a job offer to go into construction. So,
Oh,
so while I was in high school, just to flip back a little, when I was in high school, I had taken building construction, industrial arts building construction for grade 11 and 12. So it was kind of what I thought I wanted to do in life. So anyway, I got a job in building construction, and I started with Bob Jackson Construction. My buddy worked there, Neil, and Bob hated everybody. He yelled and screamed. He used the F word as every third word, and he yelled. It didn't matter what you did. He was mad at you, but he was the toughest guy I ever saw. So I was 18. He would have been in his 40s, weighed like a buck 40, but he could pour concrete all day and smoked like you wouldn't believe, and swore and yelled at me all the time. Neil, after about 2 weeks, Neil had enough and he quit. He said, I can't put up with this crap. So it's just me and Bob now, pouring basement, pouring concrete. I didn't know nothing, and I got yelled at every single day for 8 hours, 10 hours a day. But the guy taught me so much. So
whoa.
I stayed there and I think I'm making like $3 an hour, which was more than I made in the welding shop. And I'm living at home. So then my cousin Ken, who was living in Kamloops at the time, he was living with three other guys. So he wanted to get a place. So I got a place with Ken. Ken left and moved to Calgary, and he was working at a concrete form rental company that my friend Guy was working at. And the owner was a friend of my mom's from back in Saskatchewan, who I'd known all my life. So when Ken left to move to Calgary, I took the job, quit my job with Bob because I was tired of getting yelled at after 2 years. And I took a job at the form rental company. So I think I started at like $500 a month was my salary, which
Which is way more than you were making before, hey?
way more than I was making before. Got Ken had moved, so now I got an apartment by myself, and so what you're doing basically all day is delivering concrete forms. You're picking them up from construction jobs, cleaning the forms up, oiling them, putting them on racks, waiting for the next. And this is a tough job when it's tough, but there's a lot of downtime. And I love being in Kamloops. By then, the family had moved back to Sherwood Park. So yeah, so I'm making my own life in Kamloops, and I'm working for the form rental company. We worked. It was so hot in those days in the summers. You'd start at 6, to be done by 1 or 2 in the afternoon. Go spend the day at the lake every single day out to the Shuswap. So it was a pretty good gig.
That
Went through
sounds pretty good, yeah.
yeah, went through a couple of roommates. I kind of liked living on my own for a while. Then my buddy Ken from Sherwood Park moved out, and he moved back. And Dan McLeod, my buddy, moved in. He moved out. Um, so I met the Winter brothers, Rob and Lance Winter, and moved in with them. And they both worked out at the mill in Kamloops, and they were shift work. I was Monday to Friday. And you can imagine what kind of shenanigans went on in that house for a year and a half. And that'll be a different episode. That'll be for a different day. Yeah. So then about 1970, at the end of 1978, went to Ken Knox's wedding in Calgary, and he convinced us, your grandma and I, to move to Calgary to go. He had started up a construction company. So moved there, building apartments in Calgary. We moved there January 1st of 79. And by August, they decided to move the company to Grande Prairie. I'd never been to Grande Prairie, didn't know much about it, but apparently it was booming like crazy. Calgary was tough to find work because there were so many construction companies. So off we go to Grande Prairie. And it's crazy work. I'm doing so Ken's got me doing foundations for houses. He gives me a couple of crew members, and I'm leading these crew, and we're doing, I think the first year we were there, we did like 200 house foundations, which is, pouring footings, pouring walls, pouring the basement floors, and it's the hardest job on earth. If anybody ever asks you what the hardest job in the world is, it's concrete work. There's no doubt about it.
Oh
So
yeah, I've heard it's the worst too.
it is worse. So Ken, by this time, Ken's hired 20 or 30 other guys, and they're doing a great big apartment complex, and they're doing this, that, and the other thing. But he just gives me two guys and says, here, you just go, all the money's in residential foundations, and I never see them. I just go Fridays and pick up paychecks for the guys, and that's it. But man, we worked, and then that died instantly. So now now we're building. I don't know. We built a residence for the Grand Prairie College. Then I get a job in 1982, building some government housing up in High Level. I don't know if you know where High Level, Alberta is. It's almost right up to the Northwest Territories border. We're still living in Grand Prairie. Your mom's maybe 2 years old at the time, and so I'm up there Monday to Friday, and we drive home Friday. It's a 6-hour drive, I think, north of Grand Prairie,
Jesus.
and just tough work, man. Oh man, it was. And the town is tough. I remember the RCMP coming to us and saying, "You got a job trailer there." We had 4 or 5 houses or residences started construction. He goes, "July weekend, everybody comes to town. All the natives come to town. Everybody comes to town for the July long weekend there. And it's the rodeo weekend, and you better get some security on your job site, because that used to be the old campgrounds, and now that you guys have houses." Well, sure enough, we hire a guy. We go home for the July long weekend. We hired a kid, and he never left the trailer for 3 days because everybody moved in there and camped around and lived in our residences that were half built, started fires in the basement so they could keep warm. And this young guy he snuck out after 2 days, I think, he wanted nothing to do with that. So anyway, so in the fall of 1982, the fall, Ken decides to move his company to Tumbler Ridge. It's a new town just starting up in BC, and of course you've probably heard of Tumbler Ridge in the last couple of weeks in the news. So there was nothing there, and I decided, no, that's just further away from all my family, and I didn't want to go to Tumbler Ridge, so I quit. And it also, during this time, I'm kind of thinking I don't want to do this concrete job for the rest of my life. Like, I got to find something that I enjoy more. My back was starting to give me a lot of trouble at the time, and the work is hard. And then you work hard for 3 months, and then you don't have a job for a month because whatever. So we moved back to Sherwood Park, and Uncle Keith, no, first of all, Grandpa gets me a job on the pipeline. So now I'm back pipelining again. He ran his own dragline company, and he wanted me to take over the family business, if you will. So I went out and did some pipeline work. Now we're into November of 1982. Yeah. And I went for probably a month, maybe 5 weeks. And I just said to him, I'm not into this pipeline and thing. It's almost as hard as concrete work, and it's outside.
How old were you?
In 22.
22.
Yeah.
Oof.
So then I quit with your grandpa, and Uncle Keith gets me a job at Strathcona Refinery in Sherwood Park. He was a welder there, so it got me a temporary job. They have temporary maintenance crews that they got all the time. They don't want them to be full-time employees. They just want temps. So I went to work there beginning of December. and I worked through, and they really liked me, and I thought I was doing well. But every May 1st comes along, they let go all of their temporary staff so they can hire the kids of the employees that are in university. So
Mm.
they fire all of the temp staff except for the foreman. They really tried to keep me, but they just weren't going for it. So now I'm not sure what I'm going to do. It's May 1st. Uncle Jamie's been born. He was born February, so now we got two youngsters. And I'm at Mom's one day, and Uncle Wilf comes up to me and says, would you be interested in coming to work for, I'm starting with Golf Canada, or I just started a job with Golf Canada, and we need some crates built. We're shipping some wellhead stuff over to Japan. We're having a couple of rigs built in Japan. Would you be interested coming for 2 to 3 weeks working, building some crates? And I said, sure. Sounds like a pretty good job. He was going to give me, I think I started at $8 an hour. So I'm moving up the ladder, but not, but sufficient. And he drove every day. So we're driving out to Nisku, but he's got a company vehicle, so he's driving. So I thought, so I start there May 13th, 1983, and never left. So
Must have been good.
it must have been good. We had a lot of freight coming in there. We're starting the Beaufort Sea operations, and tons and tons of freight coming in. And so I'm helping building these packaging for shipment in Japan. They've hired a receiver shipper to come in and start going through freight. And so then he says to me, well, would you like to help me out? Because I'm real busy. So I went to Wilf and said, like, I'm done this crating. It's been a month. Do you want to keep me on doing it? He said, yeah, if you're interested. So that's what I did. We moved into the new warehouse in the spring of '84, and we're up to 20 employees, and I'm doing fantastic. I found a job that I really liked. It was indoors. It was hard work, but it wasn't real hard. We had two 737 charters to Tuktoyaktuk every week. We had 7 or 8 truckloads going to Tuktoyaktuk every week. So there was just countless work. Wilf just said, you guys work whatever hours you want. So I think my record for 2 weeks is, I think one time I worked 170 hours in 2 weeks or something. It was like, I just about lived there. So they hired a guy named Ron, and he'd been with Pacific Western with their Hercules aircraft. And so they hired him to look after the charters. And as luck would have it, Ron and I got along really good. He got, so in early 85, late 85, he gets a promotion in the warehouse, and he says, do you want to take over my job looking after air charters and being the manager of the warehouse? Yeah, so I went to Wilf, and Wilf said, yeah, that's a full-time golf job. You get a company truck, and the starting pay is like $3,600 a month. And I go, oh, yeah, seriously, I want that job. I had no air experience, nothing. So January of '86, I become air transport and logistics coordinator for Golf Canada in the south. They had that same job up in Tuktoyaktuk. So now I'm managing all the warehouse guys and looking after all the charters, all the freight, all the groceries, everything going up to Tuktoyaktuk. So like I'm in my dream job now. Now I can honestly say I'm truly enjoying life, enjoying what I'm doing. We buy a house in Leduc because we're pretty confident. So that was in 1985. We'd moved to Leduc. So I did this job for about 3 years, and in 1988, my boss in Calgary comes to me and says, I'd like you to move to Calgary and start a purchasing career. You've done enough of this air transport. You've done enough of this warehouse stuff. So in April of 1988, moved to Calgary. Now I'm a junior buyer in Calgary. I got to wear a suit and tie to work every day because in Calgary in those days was a suit and tie Monday to Friday. We lived up in the north. I took the bus to work every day. I was I was just in my I was in my dream job at that point in time.
Hmm.
Um, and and in those days, it was very structured. You started off as a junior buyer. You had to have so many days, years, and so much experience to get to move to a mid buyer, and then you move to senior buyer after you rarely before you were 30 or 35, you couldn't be a senior buyer. It took at least 10 to 15 years experience.
Phew.
So so about in 19 so I moved up from junior to a mid-range buyer, and I'm enjoying life in Calgary. I think this is going to be the career for me. Then in 1991 and 1990, we built a new house out in Harvest Hills. In 1991, there's a explosion at the Rimbey gas plant. There's a fatality, and the plant is down. It's frozen solid. Happened in February when it was 35 below, and that plant in those days was making like $1 million a day. So they're trying to get it back up and running, and they've got everything froze off, so all your lines are bursting. So those guys worked, and I didn't know anything about gas plants. I'd been in Nisku and I'd been in Calgary. I'd been a corporate kind of an employee up until that point in time. So my boss comes to me in May, says, they're looking for a buyer up in Rimbey for a temp just for the summer because they're trying to get all this. The plant had been back up and running now, but they're behind months in paperwork and behind in returns. And he said, well, we'll put you we'll accommodate you, and it'll be really good experience because you'll get field experience. You'll get to meet the field guys. You'll understand that whole thing better. So May, I start there. I go to Rimbey in May, and it's Monday to Friday, so I'm going back to Calgary weekends. I did that until end of September. Everything's kind of back in order. And I go back to Calgary, and 2 weeks later, the vice president phones me to come to his office. So I go to his office with my boss, and he says, the guys at Rimbey really liked you, and they want you to move back there and take that job full time. Well, what's going to happen to the guy that was there? Well, nobody ever liked him anyway, and he doesn't do a good job, and you're professionally trained. Would you be interested in moving to Rimbey? So yes, we decide, well, I guess it's okay. It's a great move for me personally from a job perspective. Rimbey's not exactly the place I wanted to end up then, but your mom and Uncle Jamie are, like they're 8 years old, 5 years old. So it seems like it's an okay thing. So I take the job there. So now I'm the buyer for the Rimbey plant. It's a big job. It's, probably more than even I could have envisioned 2 or 3 or 5 years before that for sure. And, got a $10 million a year budget. I got 2 warehousemen working for me. And it's a great job. And as a buyer in those days, you see salesmen, you get like the opportunities, go for lunch, go to do that. When I moved to Calgary, that's what it's about in Calgary, is going for lunch with suppliers. It's building a network of people. Purchasing was that's what it was. So when I moved to Rimbey, I developed this really close network of people who supplied chemicals and parts to the Rimbey plant. We had hundreds and hundreds of vendors in those days. But in 1995, Gulf Canada was kind of on the ropes. They were kind of close to closing down some of their operations. My boss from Calgary comes to me and says, you know what? I need to protect you. And some of these plants are going to be closing or sold. Would you take a job at Nisku, running the Nisku warehouse, back to where I started in 1983. So this is 1995. And I said, I don't really want to, but I will. So I moved back to Nisku in 1995. I take over running the warehouse. And then Wilf had left, I think by then, and Ron had taken over the senior manager. So I was working under him again. Then at the end of 1995, my boss from Calgary, Bob Henderson, comes to me and says, you know, you're starting to put these inventory systems in the warehouses. We've ordered up a whole bunch of this barcoding technology and wands for scanning parts, but none of our warehouses are ready for it. Would you be willing to go on the road for a year and set up all these warehouses? And when I say on the road, I literally mean that. Like, I'm talking about places. My first one was in Brazeau plant, which was an hour into the bush from Drayton Valley. So I was living in Drayton Valley. And these are just temporary, right? Like, I don't have a house. I'm just staying in a hotel or motel. And I got an hour drive through the bush every morning to get to the plant. And so my job was to come in, categorize all of the materials that are there, put barcodes on them, apply technology to them, give them their wands, set up all the technology for wands. So I did this for Brazeau. I went to Swan Hills for 2 months. Then I went to Morin, which is down south by Calgary, for 2 months. Then by now, golf has kind of got all of its gear in order. The Rimbey plant phones me back and says, like, the guy that took over for you is a disaster. We want you back. Would you be willing to move back to Rimbey again?
Oh my gosh.
So I said, sure. I said, but I'm not living in Rimbey and I want a company truck, because I've had a company truck for the last 3 years now and I'm not going to give it up. And he said, you pick where you want to live and you get a company truck. So we moved to Lacombe. So I stayed at the plant. Now I've taken over a regional role as well. So I'm doing all of the buying for the Rimbey plant, a couple other smaller plants around us, and the whole Red Deer region. So I'm doing all the purchasing for the Red Deer region. And then in 2002, 2001, my boss, Bob Henderson, comes and says, the plant is going to be sold. We're putting in a Red Deer office, and we would like you to come do the purchasing out of the Red Deer office for the field. But ConocoPhillips is in the middle of buying Golf Canada, blah, blah, blah. I went through that whole thing all over again. I said, there's a big plant turnaround coming, Bob. I can't leave now. So then the next year, he came to me again. And so I took the job in Red Deer. So now it's ConocoPhillips. I'm a senior buyer. I move into the role. They've taken, in the time I've been gone now, they've taken over a bunch of smaller companies. So there's 9 or 10 field buyers now, all the way from Grand Prairie down to Estevan, Saskatchewan, and everywhere in between. So I'm the regional buyer for Red Deer District, and they asked me, I've been there a year, and they say, you know what, you're going to become team lead for the whole field procurement stuff. I don't want to do that. I just want to do the job. But nope, you're doing the job anyway, and all the guys like you. And so I became team lead in, I think it was 2003, 2004 probably, for all of the field buyers. So now everybody's problems become my problems.
Oh, wow.
And then
how was that?
No, I don't know. I did it for 10 years, so I guess it wasn't horrible. But and then I think it was around 2005, we bought a big company out of the US, so we got double the employees, and we're bringing in SAP platform, which is which is kind of an integrated purchasing, warehousing, maintenance, inventory, accounting platform. You probably maybe have heard of Chad, maybe you've heard of SAP, or it's the global leader. So they want me to implement SAP for the purchasing module. So I have to take all of this SAP training, Houston and Denver, and I'm going to be the rollout lead for purchasing. And at the same time, I'm still doing team lead for all the field buyers. So those were really hectic years. 2005, 6, 7 were hectic. Then at the same time, we're bringing in this big corporation that we bought out of the US, and they didn't like ConocoPhillips. So it was like a really, really difficult couple of years trying to integrate two corporations that do not like one another. The company didn't do a very good job of the integration. They allowed certain things to happen on the other guy's side that they didn't allow to happen on our side. And I constantly was fighting a battle to bring these guys into the supply chain purchasing world, and they were having no part of it. And so anyway, that was that part of it. Then I think it's around 2012, they bring a guy from the US, a couple of guys from the US into our purchasing department. And I've had enough of kind of the team lead job. I've been in it for a long time. So they'd make me a procurement liaison for the field. They make me a special projects guy. So any purchasing projects that need done. I hate to say, not a filler job, but just they want to keep your expertise, but they don't want you actively doing day-to-day stuff. I think it was 2012 or 13. They asked me to go into Calgary, and they asked me to go into Calgary again to get me an apartment, and they want me to lead category management buying. I'd been doing so. Basically, category management is you give people roles, and you tell them, okay, this buyer is going to look after certain aspects of that. Let's say welders. Throughout the corporation, we got different welding companies working for us. Okay, your job is to go look after welders. You make sure they're all being paid the same. There's continuity with welders and electricians. And I've been doing that in the field. I started it about 5 years before that. Corporately, they liked it. So they moved me to Calgary to lead this team. So they moved me to Calgary. They get me an apartment, and I'm in Calgary for the whole year. Now I'm getting close to retirement. There's lots of weird stuff going on at the corporation. Houston's moving in, taking over a bunch of stuff. So around 2014, I'm back in Red Deer, and I'm just about done. I'm not having as much fun as I had. For 30 years, I had enjoyed the job immensely. Now it's becoming kind of old hat. Stuff's changing. So 2015, they come to me with an offer of early retirement, and a $200,000 check, and say, here, if you want to retire, here's a retirement date. So I picked the retirement date, and the rest, as they say, is history. So that was October 31st, 2015, which was the day before my 60th birthday. So I turned 60 on November 1st. So I can honestly say I retired in my 50s. by one day.
True.
So that was the career. It was, we talked a little bit about this before. In those days, the longer you stayed at a job, the more valuable you felt. In today's world, I think the longer you stay at a job, the more people wonder why you're staying at that job. Like, you guys can move every 5 years, and I think you'll gain way more experience doing that than staying in one job for 5 years or one corporation. I was lucky because I was able, as you can tell, I took a lot of different roles, and I took jobs that were I had no sort of past experience in, and I wasn't of the corporate world. If you remember, coming up through residential construction is very difficult, but there's no sort of boss in Houston to answer to. There's no corporate sort of culture that you create. It's you're hiring and firing guys almost every day, and if you last at the site for more than 3 months, you've done pretty well. There's no safety culture. There's no you make friends, but it's not a cultural thing. So for me to adapt when I got hired by Gulf was really difficult. I wasn't used to the reporting. I wasn't used to doing the corporate things, the HR stuff that you've got to do every day. But I was never afraid to take on a role, never afraid to learn, never afraid to, challenge. You know me, I kind of like to speak my mind, and sometimes they appreciate it. I'm sure there were times when it didn't go over all that terribly well. So, that was a 32-year career, counting my first couple of years of contract work. So anyway, that was the best 32 years of my life. I was very loyal. I gave the job everything I had until the last couple of years, where it was just like, it felt to me like you're trying to push square pegs in round holes. So but anyway, yeah, that's my work story. When I was the transportation logistics manager, they had that cross shift role in Tuktoyaktuk, looked after. We had our own airport up there. We had two 737s, charter flights a week. We had a Bell 212 and a Sikorsky S-61 helicopter. We had Twin Otters, and we would fly crew change from all of the native communities throughout the Arctic, would come to work in Tuk on a week in, week out. So one time, the two air traffic guys from up there, they were on a 2-week in, 2-week out cross shift, both had to go take a course at the same time. So they asked me to go to Tuk for a couple of weeks while they were on course, or 10 days, to look after the airport. So here's a guy that's never had limited experience in that. And now they send me to Tuk. I'm the airport manager now, and I'm looking after 737s coming in, like 2 a week. When the crew comes in, you've got helicopters changing. One ship was about 100 kilometers out in the Beaufort Sea. The other one was 50 kilometers out the other direction. So you got two offshore rigs that you're responsible for: helicopter, for freight, for groceries. You've got all of the workers from the smaller communities around the Northwest Territories. You're picking up 6 guys in a Klavic, and you're flying them into their cross shift job in Tuk. So I did that for 10 days. I got to ride helicopters every day. I'd go and check flights with the helicopter pilots just because I was bored. And there was busy times, but so that kind of thing, like, who gets to do that kind of thing? Who starts at a job when they're like 26, 27 years old, a whole complete career change, and ends up within 5 or 6 years running an airport in Tuktoyaktuk, and I was looking after all of the truck traffic. So there were weeks where we had 7 or 8 or 10 truckloads going from Nisku to Tuk. Your guys would have to load that, whether that's small freight, large freight, LTL freight, whatever, right? I was looking after all of that. We had a lot of times we had Hercules. So we would lease a Hercules for a trip there, and I'd be responsible for loading, making sure that got loaded properly and stuff. Learjet, so we'd have a Learjet emergency flight out of Houston with some parts, and they'd wake me up at 2 a.m. and say, "Yeah, the rig and tuck is down, and the only parts available are in Houston." So I'd be on the phone, and I'd book a Learjet from Houston. They'd pick up the part, fly it to Edmonton, go through customs, and then change planes because Tuck only had a gravel runway. So most planes are not equipped to land on gravel runways. So then you'd change planes, and you'd get a northern plane that would take it up to Inuvik or Tuck or whatever. So just those kind of things, the experiences I had. I spent time in Houston. I spent time in Oklahoma. All of our purchasing at the end was done in a town called Bartlesville, Oklahoma. So I spent time down in Bartlesville. We had an office in Denver. I spent time in Denver doing, once I was in year 20, it was really, really elevated, both from a pay perspective, job perspective. At the end, I was 17,000 a month pay, and I was getting stock options, and I was getting, they just kept throwing money at me like. So, but I worked really, really, really hard for it. I think one of the benefits to me too was, like I said, was taking on any role offered, but I had a phenomenal memory, and it really, really helped me a lot early on. I never forgot anything. I didn't forget phone numbers or people. When I started in the warehouse, I could work for 3 weeks, and somebody would phone up and say, like, "There's a part in your warehouse that," I'd go, "Yeah, I remember that came in, it's over." I could go find it for them. And so then I became that guy that had this phenomenal memory, and I could read something once and remember it. So I think that was really a benefit, was a good memory, and B, I was willing to take on anything. I wasn't, I'd seen the other side of I'd started off in construction for 10 years. I'd seen that side of life, and I didn't really want it anymore. So I did everything I could to make sure make sure it's good. I never thought I'd get as far as I did, to be honest with you, but there, that's my work.
Oh, wow.
That sounds like a lot of
lot
moving around, a lot of jumping around.
I'd say.
Well, it was hard on your mom and Uncle Jamie, only because there was not a lot of time spent in any one place. It was, there's a sacrifice you make when you do that, right? And do you remember when I said early on that I was working 170 hours every 2 weeks? That was hard on the family as well, right? Because I was never home. I was working 12 to 16-hour days, 7 days a week. So there was not but I really was new to the job. I'd never made that kind of money before, and I really, really wanted to do good at the job. So I think probably what I did to a small degree was sort of sacrifice family over job, which I would never ever do again, to be honest with you. Maybe for a short term, but I think I did it for far, far too long, to be honest with you.
But you wouldn't have gotten where you did without doing it, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Sometimes sacrifice pays off.
Well, it does in the long run, but you also when you look back on it, you can look back on it through a different set of eyes than when you're in it, right? And you go, "Man, I wish I would have just backed off a little bit," or whatever. I mean, it is what it is, and you do what you got to do, right?
Yeah.
Why did the family move to Kamloops?
Oh, well, that was when my dad bought that car franchise, that holiday rent-a-car franchise. So
you guys had to move out to Kamloops.
Yeah, he was like me. He worked in the oil field his whole life. He worked at an oil field company in Estevan, and then he took a job in Lloydminster. So he could run the store, run the franchise in Lloydminster, and then got moved to Edmonton. That's when we moved to Stewart Park in 1969. And then so it was 1973. the end of 72 when he bought this Holiday franchise. So they were trying to get a foothold in Western Canada. They had been in Eastern Canada for years, and they're not around today. I don't know why. I don't know why they didn't survive. So my dad moves to Kamloops, sells the house in Sherwood Park, buys a house there. He's basically all of his life savings have gone into this car franchise. And God rest his soul, he's not a very good businessman. He didn't run the Holiday car franchise like the Holiday wanted him to run it. He was in Kamloops. He's competing against Hertz, Tilden, Budget. The big guys are already there. He's new in town. So basically what he's trying to do is get car rentals. So how do you do that? Well, you rent to people that can't rent from Hilden and Hertz and Budget because they don't have good credit or they don't have a credit card or whatever. So he goes from around 20 cars when he first opened in the spring of 73, sorry. He goes from like 20 cars to about 60 in the summer because it's crazy busy. And he's renting cars to people that he shouldn't be renting cars to. And so he goes and leases 60 some cars, puts them on the lot, and they're going. And he's got pickup trucks and he's got big cars. You can imagine your Uncle Brian and I, we get the choice of whatever car we want every day. It was like a Dodge Dart or a van or a pickup, or if you wanted to take a girl to a movie, you take out a big Chrysler 500 with those kind of things, right? But he was not a good businessman. Year 1, 2, and 3 should have been 20 cars at the most, but he had to have that 60 cars because somebody might come in and need a car, and that was fine during June, July, August. But September comes, tourist industry dies, travel dies, and bang, you are stuck with 65 cars on the lot and you only rent 5 a week out. So basically, he was bankrupt by Christmas. It didn't even last just 1 year, he lasted. And so I think it was February of 75 that they moved back to Sherwood Park again. So it was just really a lesson in absolutely poor business management. So whatever business you take, don't take that one.
Oh man.
That one summer when I didn't have a job, and my mom would be on my dad, because by this time he's running an oil field supply store. So basically, it's like a Costco for oil field parts. And she would just say, like, give your son a job. Nope. My sons are going to learn to make it on their own. That was kind of the philosophy then. And she goes, you got to give your own kids a job. Nope. Nobody gave me that chance when I was a kid, and they're going to have to earn their keep or earn their way, right? So he's running an oil field store. He could have slipped me in into the yard crew or the warehouse crew pretty easily, but never once did he do that. And I don't know if he ever regretted it or not. But
so you said that you got an injury during what was it, cement pouring? Like a back injury?
Yep. Yeah, that never left.
That's kind of what forced you into
yes,
the warehouse.
Yep. And I always knew, like when we talk about the education part of it a little later, I always knew I wanted to do something different. I took building construction in high school because I was lazy. And it seemed to me like it was the easiest way, it was worth a lot of credits, right? And it was half a day. You go into the building shop at 12:30 until 3:30, and that's your whole afternoon. But I always knew I wanted to do something different for 2 reasons. A, my back was not going to survive concrete work for much longer, and I knew that's not what I wanted to do. I knew I was smarter than that. I was lazy in high school. So even even when I moved to Calgary in 1979, so I'd only been, I guess I'd been 5 years in construction, and I was thinking about what I was going to do for my future. I I took a course on online, no, not really online, didn't have online in those days. I took a, a mail-in kind of course. I started as a civil engineer because I really thought I wanted to be an engineer. Really good with math, good with numbers. I had that engineering brain. If you know engineers, they have a completely different way of thinking about things. They're very methodical in their thinking, and most of them are type A personalities. They're very anal about, all their ducks in a row and all that stuff. So I took this course, and basically what you would do is they would send you your package for a week. You would do all your homework, your study, and then you would mail back the package back in. They would send you your next week's package and your marks from the previous week. So I did this for 3 or 4 months, but it was hard work, and I was in construction then, and I was working 12-hour days, and I got late. I don't think I got lazy. I just couldn't do it. I was getting home from work at 7 o'clock after pouring concrete all day. The last thing you want to do is do 2 to 3 hours worth of
Schoolwork.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding.
So
Wow.
if we would have had it online like you do today with a little bit more interactive, I may have done it. But the reality is there's nobody pushing you. You get an envelope in the mail, a package with your next week's studies in it, and you have to do 2 or 3 hours a night of reading, and then at the end of it, there's an exam, and you mail back the exam, and they tell you a week later what your results of that were. And I could see in the first 2, 3 weeks, maybe 4, my marks in the 90s. I could see weeks 5 through 8 where they're in the 80s, and then the next month they're in the 70s, and I'm going, yeah, no, I just can't, as much as I'd like to do it. So when I took the job at Golf, though, you know what corporate life is like. There was a lot of training available, and in those days, they had Purchasing Management Association of Canada was a Canadian organization for buyers, warehousemen, logistics. So I took. I mean, it's a 5-8 year career. It's a 5 to 8 year path to get your designation. I think Jennifer has her designation now. So I started to take courses in that and did very, very well at it. So yeah, but it was I think, Jaron, it was the bad back that sort of set my career goals for me, to be honest with you. And once you hurt your back in concrete work, there's no kind of going back. Like it never gets better, because all you're doing is it's back-breaking work, and they say that, right? So
Yeah, wow. I wouldn't have been able to do any of that.
well, you would. You'd do what you had to do. So
That's true.
And so from an education standpoint, I mean, Jaron and I talked about this before. I think we all did a little bit about, being a bit lazy going through school. And I was the kind of kid who, if I got 65, I was perfectly happy with that, because I didn't want to work to get 75. So I would, again, with my memory, I could read something once and not do homework for a week and get 65 on the test. And that's kind of unfortunately, how I treated school for the most part. And when I got to high school again, it was just like do the bare minimum, because I don't think it's fair to kids. Like, what Hayden's going through now, or what, Mason went through, is I don't know if it's fair to kids to force them to try and make decisions in grade 10 about what they want to do for the rest of their life. Because as I just explained, lots of stuff changes. And you can have all the
Yep.
passion you want about whatever it is you want to do, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's what you're going to do for the rest of your life, right? So you go get a BCom, like somebody in this podcast might be doing. What does that mean at the end of the day? That doesn't mean you're going to become an accountant. Look at Uncle Brian, got a BCom, and he went into owning car dealerships for life, right? I mean, so it sets, I think BCom is the one that kind of sets you up to go as many different paths as you like, but right, Hayden?
Yeah.
So let's talk about your Hayden, let's talk about your education.
My education.
Yeah, like where are you going?
Work
Well,
Are
and
you smart or
education.
not?
well, right now, my grades are pretty awesome. Cannot lie. Got
Except for one.
well, no, I actually don't have a grade in ELA right now, so can't actually say that. Speaking of that, I just started doing it online last night.
So
So
basically what he's trying to say is he dropped out of English in high school
yeah,
and he's going to complete his English online.
yeah.
Oh, I did not know that was a thing.
And I'm not gonna lie, I am very happy with my choice. I definitely dodged a bullet just because of my teacher. But can't
You're
go
you're
further than that.
you're a young adult and you're going to be forced to make life decisions lots. You're probably your first big one, I would say, wouldn't you?
I wouldn't necessarily as my first big one.
Yeah, maybe not. You've had a couple of big ones, but you all have, yeah.
But I guess it is pretty major, but I do have full confidence. I just got like the novel for the novel study like last Thursday. I started reading it. Or no, on Friday I started reading it and I'm already on page 200, so
Awesome.
So you're using AI to help you get through this course.
actually
I
no, I'm
see.
not. I don't use AI. I do not support it. So why would I use it?
Because you
I
hate
think,
English.
No,
yeah.
no, it's not worth it to use AI.
I was telling
Okay.
Kaylee about your difficulties in English, and she said she only she got 98 on her last report card in English in grade. I think she's in grade 10, right? And I said maybe you could help Hayden out a little bit.
Well,
So what bothers you so much about English? Like what was it just your teacher?
it's well, the thing about English, the way they grade it, it's like super biased and opinion based. So,
Mm,
yeah.
not all the time.
So
I
is
feel like
life.
for a lot of things it is because one teacher could grade a paper and give you them like a 70 and another teacher could give you like an 80 on it.
That's
Well,
true. It does depend on the teacher.
I hate to break the bad news to you, but that's life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, but for things like
What-
math and science, there is an actual correct answer,
There
which is why I'm
is,
actually
yeah.
good at it because it's like more logical.
See, there's that engineering. Maybe you should be an engineer if you think
Who
that way.
knows? Well, I'm not that smart.
Oh, yes, you are.
I struggled to get into
But
university already.
what's funny is when you say that, like Uncle Brian, I think he's probably the worst of the four of us in math.
Really?
Yes, I'm being perfectly honest with you. He was the worst, and he'll even tell you that. So why he went into becoming a chartered accountant, which is, in my mind, is the hardest discipline. Like you got 4 years of university, and then you got 3 years of articling for peanuts and working 80-hour work weeks. And why you would even want to do that is beyond me. And I think he did it because he had two or three friends that were going into that same program.
Oh,
Like I said, I have no clue he was he was really good. He was a good athlete. Um, so he could have played junior hockey. He went to an Edmonton Eskimo advancement camp. He could have played the next level of football. He probably could have gone and played football at U of A, but he didn't. He just went to U of A and took his BCom and become a chartered accountant. He didn't do any sports. He just, but he says he had to work extra hard because that was his poorest discipline, I think. So that's funny. Funny how life just sort of does that to you, right?
Yeah.
And he gets so he gets a call from and so here's the thing about networking. He gets a call from a buddy of his who he went to university with, had just moved to Vancouver. And his buddy says to him, yeah, I'm working, he was at one of the big accounting firms. I don't remember which one. And there's a guy out here, he was looking for a general manager for his car dealerships. And, he'd like to talk to you. So Brian talks to Lauren. Yeah, why don't you fly your wife out? And, I'm looking for a general manager for a new GM dealership in Port Coquitlam. And so Brian flies out. He had just started with a big company in Edmonton. I don't one of the big accounting firms. So he had taken a job there. He goes out to Port Coquitlam, and I'm not sure to this day what was the driver behind why this career change all of a sudden. But now he's going, yeah, you know what? I don't want to work for a big accounting firm. I want to go general manager for a car dealership. So that's what he did for the next 30 years, owned his own dealership and owned parts of dealerships. And so it's funny how those career paths, just when you think you're going to put one foot in front of the other, something happens and you're just gone off in a different direction, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, do you guys still
Yeah.
do sports when you're in school?
That's the plan. Yeah. I really want to, but if I can't, that's okay because I do know the reality that playing sports at the next level, you're gonna be very, very busy and won't have any free time.
It's a dedication thing for
Yes,
sure.
a thing that many people say is that you could only choose two out of the three between, I think it's your sport, your education, and your social life. You can only pick two out of the three if you're trying to be a student athlete. So,
Which two are you picking? You don't have to answer that.
um, I feel like the smart thing to say would be like
What everyone
obviously
would say.
education and
The social.
sports, maybe social, but I feel like sports you just naturally gain that social life if you're playing on a team.
Oh, that's true.
But yeah, and then education obviously would be the most important because
Yes, that's why you're doing it. That's why you're doing
yeah,
it.
because university is crazy expensive and
Yeah.
it's like it helps a lot for your future. So
So let me ask you, what's the story then about this acceptance to Brant McEwen? You've accepted, but there's also something that the U of A is putting on. So maybe tell us a little bit about that. What's that about?
So pretty much what happened, I recently received an email and they pretty much said, "Hey, your grade is really, really close to the competitive average. So you are given an opportunity to get accepted. So what I have to do is I have to like make a video like kind of about myself, and then if they like that, then I have to do an interview, and if they like that, then I get accepted.
To
Wow,
U of
that's-
A.
Yeah, to the U of A. But if I don't do that, then it's just how it is. Um I'm still
You're still going to be accepted at
yeah,
McEwen.
like I'm still on the wait list for U of A though.
Oh, okay.
So if like a few people are like rejecting their offers, then
Oh,
they'll be
really?
like, "Hey, you're next in line. You could be accepted." And I'm gonna choose the U of A over McEwen if I do get accepted to U of A, just because it's the better school and it's just a more impressive school to go to.
I think it's harder though from a, if you sort of put the two side by side, it's a, U of A is a harder marking school from
Yeah,
that standpoint, right? Like McEwen has a different marking system. They don't use bell curves and stuff, right?
yeah, yeah. I'm pretty sure that just mainly depends on like the professor you get. So I
Yeah.
kind of just gotta hope and pray for a good one. But
Hey, like
Hmm.
Mason, what's up with you? Let's hear your story.
What's up with me, hey? Um,
Start back from the beginning of time.
from the beginning. All right. Well,
high school.
high school. I was also pretty lazy in school. Not even just in high school, in middle school too. All my friends can tell you the
Oh
same thing.
gosh.
Um, but it's just because I didn't really have any interest in a lot of the stuff they were teaching, like math. It's like, okay, don't really care about it. Don't really care for it. Science, there was some cool stuff in science. Mostly just the labs we got to do, exploding stuff or doing that stuff.
Exploding stuff.
Yeah.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and then ELA and social were my stronger subjects, so opposite of Hayden.
Yep.
Mostly because, well, ELA is a lot of like just creative,
Very creative.
yeah, creative writing and all that, and then I could take the writing skills and just put it into my social work, like essays and stuff. Um, and social somehow was my highest grade after
Me
I
too.
graduated.
That would be mine too.
I got a 92, I think,
I didn't.
and
So far for me, it's calculus by a lot. I don't know how.
I
I don't
think
even know how that works.
I got like 70s or 65 or something like that in math. So I was happy with that though.
Yep.
Um, but I've known that I wanted to do something in the movie industry for since I was
Since
14.
you saw Spider-Man.
Yeah, but since I was 14 is when I really got into it. So
I think
five,
we all knew that because we've seen like a lot of the work you've done in the last few years is it's always been geared around that, right? Your whole id is around that kind of thing, right?
yeah, exactly. So I've been lucky enough to have my mind set on that path for a long time, and now I'm in school for it, and I'd say I'm doing pretty good. Term 3 is starting tomorrow,
And
and
when you're done,
August 23rd.
and then what's the prospects when you're done August 24th? What happens?
What happens? Well,
Have you got a job?
the I forgot what the statistic was, but I think it was 93% of graduates are employed within the first month of graduating.
Wow.
So no, you do not have a job yet.
No, not right after I graduate, but I
Well,
still have
hopefully you're in the 93%.
yeah. Well, I got a couple connections. Um,
That's good.
and then I have to. I'm probably gonna have to move to Vancouver though, somehow.
Oh,
So I'll have to figure out what happens after I graduate. Haven't thought that far ahead yet. Um, but yeah. And then my worked at McDonald's since I was 15, 13, 14. I don't remember.
15.
Worked there for a good couple of years, more than I should have probably.
yeah.
And then I
Wait, how long
worked
did you work there for?
3 years, I think.
I'm just coming up on 3 years.
Wow, look at that.
And Mason, where were you working last night at 1 o'clock in the morning?
The Half Itch restaurant that I'm
I
currently
thought,
employed at.
oh, and they're open at what, 12:45?
Nope, we were closing up. We
Oh,
had a it was really busy yesterday, and we were understaffed because someone called in, and he's usually our dishwasher, so we had no dishwasher the whole day. So all the
oh,
dishes just
piled up.
piled up. It was literally every single dish in the entire store. I have a picture of it. It was like the
You
pile
sent it to
was
me. It
up
was
to my head.
ridiculous.
That's when the cooks step in and start washing dishes.
Yeah,
Typically.
we were washing dishes in between, and it still got piled up. And
crazy.
so we were there till 12:30, closing up.
Oh, awesome.
What time
And
does it normally close?
we closed
Been
at
there.
9.
9?
So
Yeah.
you were doing like you were
Yeah.
cleaning up for like almost 4 hours, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, we only had it was me and one other guy closing the whole
Jeez.
restaurant.
Oh
Did you,
my.
did you not tell them you have a podcast to do in the morning?
I knew I was able to make it.
Was the other guy? Is he chill? So was it like actually somewhat enjoyable, or was
Yeah,
it just?
all my coworkers are sweet. Best job I've had. We all go out for drinks.
So you're gonna
and
have
Yeah.
you'll have something to look forward to after October 23rd if you don't land a gig right away, right?
yeah, just full
You'll
time
be
there.
there. Yeah. So
Um,
Darren, what's up with your? So Jaren just made a career change
he did.
Yes.
I did. I did. Sales, baby.
at 26 years old. So
Yeah, no, it's been super good so far. I started what did I start doing? My first job was uh a lift operator at our local ski hill. That was probably the easiest job I think I've ever had. I just I just made sure everybody got onto the chairlift fine, and if they didn't, I would press a button, help them on,
did you have like an
carry
Australian
on.
accent?
Yeah,
I
for a
did-
little bit.
I didn't think there's any chairlift operators that aren't Australian.
Well, those ones are only in like Banff and Jasper.
Yeah, that's true.
Unfortunately, no Aussies come to Edmonton. And then I got a full-time job at a restaurant for during high school. And then when I was in college for that 1 year, I worked at a golf course. And I was like just mowing lawns. That was the easiest job also I think I've ever had. 2 easy jobs.
Except for
But
you had to get
then-
up at 5 a.m. Right?
That wasn't bad. I didn't mind that because we would be off by 1 and
Yeah.
I'd have the whole day to
Do
do whatever I wanted. And then after that, I got another full-time job at a higher end restaurant. Worked there for 3 years throughout COVID. And then worked at a construction company doing a whole bunch of admin things, all the fun stuff.
Yep.
Not breaking my back.
No.
And then from there, I did some social media management and started sales at a truck accessory shop. So I sold like lift kits, wheels, tires. That's kind of what led me into car sales. More money,
Yeah. Oh, money. So what
but a
What-
lot
what
more
is
work
there?
hours, I guess.
So what's the future look like for you then? Like if you could look out 5 years, 10, 20, what does that look like? Do you sell cars for 5 or 10 years? I mean, your dad's still doing it. He's very successful at it. Is that a career for you?
See where it goes.
Yeah.
See how it goes. Yeah. Maybe I go into a different line of sales, but
Like, or management or whatever.
yeah, management would be. I'd be fine with that. Yeah.
Is it your
Haven't
dream
really-
job?
I wouldn't say it's my dream job, but I'm enjoying it so far. So maybe it might be.
As long as it
Time will
pays,
tell.
it has to pay the bills, right? That's the key,
Yes.
you know.
And it's it's kind of all on me at this point. Like I don't get paid hourly, right? So the
If you don't sell, you don't.
the stress is there.
Stress is good though. Stress brings out the best or the worst in people.
It's
Right?
definitely pushes you. Yeah, I realized
What's
that.
what happened in college with you then? What was the 1 year a waste? Was it something that you thought you wanted, you didn't want? Like, what's the reason?
Mm, I wanted to take a year off out of high school, you know, just kind of enjoy freedom for a bit, but wouldn't say I was forced into going into college straight out of high school, but I kind of was.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that was a big factor into me not really
Yeah. It wasn't,
trying.
if it had been your dream or vision, then you probably would have lasted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I would probably go back and, put my full effort in because I wasn't studying or anything when I was there, but I'm still I did well in 3 out of the 4 courses I was taking.
Yeah.
Finance was the one that kicked me in the butt.
There you go.
Yeah.
We'll see how I do.
Economics and all those other courses were pretty good. I was passing those, so it's not like I was failing, except for that one course, finance. But
So Mace, what does 5-10 years look like for you?
Oh, well,
Remember, we're going to go back on this in 5 years from now. So
true.
what,
Well,
yeah.
hopefully I will be, the vision is I'll be in Vancouver working at some big studios, and hopefully I'll moved up the ladder in a little bit. I don't know how long it takes to move up the ladder, but there's junior visual effects artists and there's hold on.
Senior,
There's junior and senior and one in between.
intermediate.
Yeah. So I'll start off as a junior, and I don't know how long it takes to move up from junior to intermediate, but maybe I'll be intermediate by then.
Who knows?
And I'll be working on some cool movies, and yeah, that's
Sort of,
my career vision.
sort of like my junior, intermediate, senior buyer job that I had back in 1988, right?
Exactly. And
Exactly.
then maybe eventually, way down the line, I'll be a supervisor.
Movie
So
executive.
I'll be a visual effects supervisor, so I'll be on the sets with everybody while they do their stuff.
Would you move to Hollywood?
Mm, I don't think so. I don't think I'd move there. I think
No.
Vancouver's a pretty good spot, I'd
Yeah.
say. There's there's a lot of all the big ones like Disney, Sony, Marvel,
They're all in Vancouver.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Hayden, what about you now? You're not quite that old yet, but
Whoa,
what's
I'm not
your,
old.
what
Well,
does your future look like?
Well, hopefully school goes very well, and if that does happen, eventually, like obviously I won't get this immediately, but what I want to work towards is to become some sort of financial officer, just kind of keep in check of
Yeah.
what businesses are doing with money, that sort of thing, making sure they're doing the right thing. And
you're gonna be a narc.
Fiduciary. They're called a fiduciary,
and
right?
then
In the
Wolf of Wall Street.
There you go.
That's a joke.
And then maybe you can help your other two brothers out with their
Yeah.
huge finances that they're going to have. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the plan. That's the plan.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah. And maybe if football goes well, obviously this isn't guaranteed, but maybe I could become a professional football player. But who knows?
Professional football player and accountant.
Wow.
That's good. That would be tough.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
hopefully, I need to make sure I'm able to travel because I gotta keep traveling the world. I gotta go see Japan and Europe, and I'd like to go back to
Bro.
Australia again with
You
more
really?
money.
Yeah, not have to sleep on the beach.
Yep.
Ooh.
It takes 2 years to move up from junior to intermediate for full-time, consistent working.
So do you have to move to Vancouver to get the job, or do you just stay where you're at until you get the job? Like you just say A's and marks and hope somebody phones you? Or is it better to be there in their faces all the time? So,
It-
you know.
It probably would be better for that too.
Except for living in Vancouver is not cheap if you don't have a job.
Yeah, exactly. But there's also like there's some smaller like job opportunities here in Alberta, like Calgary.
Yeah.
So I could start off with that just to get some
Get some-
experience and some
yeah.
money, and then head over to Vancouver when
Yeah.
I'm ready.
I know we talked about it one time. We talked one of our other episodes about kind of integrity, right? Like I think for everybody, that's, you know, your word is your kind of your bond, and that's the only thing you got at the end of the day, right? So I think it's important to have integrity, honesty. Those are absolutely key traits for all of us, not just you or me. It's if you can't, you know, if you don't have honesty, if people don't trust you, your chances of success are very limited. When I talked about the guy at the Rimbey plant, when they begged me to come back after only being there for 4 or 5 months, was, you know, was an integrity and honesty issue, right? And so he lost a career over that, or, you know, I don't know
Yep.
about that, but his job certainly changed after I moved there, because he was demoted to a admin guy going through invoices, and then he was early retired. So I just give you that as a bit of an advice from my perspective. If I was, you know, if I was hiring, or if I had any say in something, you know, when I was at Conoco the last few years, they created hiring teams. So if in the Red Deer office, we had engineers, we had purchasing, we had field operations guy, we had all the leadership from Western Canada was in the Red Deer office. And if you wanted to hire somebody, you had to go through the hiring team. So I was on there was 4 or 5 of us on the hiring team. So HR would come up from Calgary. We would have a day of interviews, maybe 3 or 4 interviews for the day. And we would all sit in a room and listen to these poor guys, people that came in for these interviews. And we were just a bunch of executives or senior leadership. You know, it was like 5 against 1. So, and they would have to sort of, like you said, sell themselves. But I mean, I always said, you can train a monkey to do a job. You can't train a monkey to have personality and integrity and honesty, right? So whenever I sat in on interviews as an interviewer, I was always, my key trait was to listen, to watch how the behaviors, and you know, that's all I cared about. I could teach you how to do, if you didn't exactly fit the job parameters, I could teach you that part of it. But I could never teach you to have personality. And I've seen some of the most talented people fail because they don't have personality. They don't have the personality for the job, or they're not, maybe they don't have enough integrity or honesty, right? So I think that, and I don't know if you can manufacture integrity. Do you think? Or is, like, can you change? can you, or are you not an honest person forever, right? Like,
I feel like you can change.
Yeah.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
I think you all mature, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Jaron, let's just, you're in a job that oftentimes is thought of as being less than honest, or, right?
It's
And
true. Yeah.
that doesn't have to be the case. I'm not saying it's for everyone, but that's the kind of the vision of a car salesman, is somebody that might lack a little integrity or honesty, because you're trying to sell cars, and you might know something about a car that's that somebody wouldn't buy it otherwise, but you're gonna make them buy it because that's your livelihood, right? So
Yeah. So the great thing about our dealership is that for used cars, for example, we have to make sure that it goes through like the AMVIC inspection, and then we have our own Toyota. It's called Toyota certified. So we have to make sure that every vehicle we sell that is used is fixed and in working condition before we can put it back on the market. Where other dealerships, they'll do their AMVIC inspection, but they'll sell it to a customer
anyway,
as a lemon. Yeah, not fixed. So if a vehicle comes in and it needs new rotors or has a broken bumper or whatever, we'll fix that before we resell it.
yeah.
So that's kind of helps with the integrity part, I guess, like
Well, the integrity
honesty.
part,
You don't have to lie.
right? Exactly. But the integrity part is, that's how you get repeat customers too, right? If
Yeah,
Jaron
exactly.
does a good job selling something, it's like selling anything. If you do a good job selling it, those folks are going to come back to you. They're going to recommend you to their friends or their family, right?
Yep.
Do you have a
100%.
business card you hand out to people? Be like, hey,
I do.
Th-
Yep.
How many have you gotten rid of already? Hopefully lots.
Probably 30, like whole
Yeah.
stack.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
And
nice.
you sold a vehicle your first couple of weeks, right?
First weekend, yeah, after orientation week.
Yeah.
I sold it on, so I started on I guess after orientation, I started on the Monday and I sold on Friday.
Wow. Awesome.
Pretty
Yeah.
good.
Solid.
So that was pretty good. Yep, got the first one under the belt. Now it's just
You're not a virgin
keeping
anymore.
it going. No, I'm not.
No.
But yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah. Well, and I think Uncle Brian, when I talked about him being in the car business, he worked his whole 30 years to ensure that people had integrity, right? There's a bunch of car salesmen out there who they go from dealership to dealership to dealership because they don't have that, right? And there's you could probably look at, Brian could tell you, there's probably 100 guys out there that just can't keep a job because they're not open or honest, right? And then there's others who stay at the same place for as long as they want, and they've got a list of customers, the repeats that come back to them for decades and decades, right?
Yeah, and yeah, just being honest and upfront with people that's the only way you can be able to succeed, I think, especially in the business that I'm working in.
Yeah,
people want that.
Do you know what? If it costs you a sale, or it costs you a little bit of money at some point in time, I would tell you that it's still worth it at the end of the day, right? If to maintain your integrity, if you had to lose a sale because of for what, I couldn't even imagine the reason, but I would hope that you would want to maintain your integrity and honesty through that process, right?
Yeah, like if we couldn't bring down a price or something like that.
Yeah, and me as a buyer, I think that the funny thing is all the opportunities that I had over the years. I could have a whole podcast on just the crazy episodes I had with the shenanigans that went on as a purchasing guy, because we the old days, it was different. Like when my dad was in the business, he was a salesman, and when he was kind of when I was like 8 or 9 years old, and he would load up the car Monday morning with alcohol, his company car, and he would go on a week sales trip or a 4-day sales trip and come back with the booze all gone. Like that was how you got business in those days, was just fill up the car, curling bonspiels and golf tournaments, and you had to be at every one of them, and you had to be the guy buying the drinks. And sometimes you'd pull up to a well site, and the only way you got on that well site was a case of whiskey for the job superintendent. Those like that behavior in the 60s was in 70s was crazy. A guy across the street from us, when we lived in Estevan, worked for an oil company, and he had their construction crews come and build his house on the oil company's nickel. And he got caught doing that, then lost his job over it. So he got a new house, but no job. So, and things were way, way different in then. And so I grew up in that world. I was quite young, and man, you could just get away with. So over my career, I probably have been in a suite at an Oilers game or a Flames game probably 50 or 60 times. I've probably been in a suite for Eskimo games or Elks games for probably 20 or 25 times. And I've met some incredible people. Like I said, I had a supplier take me to Denver for 3 days on a golf trip. Now, here's one trip. I don't know if you guys know of a company called Swedgelock. Did we talk about this before? They supply fittings for like the space shuttles and like little hydraulic fittings, and so they have their owner was a multi-billionaire in Cleveland, Ohio, and they have 4 or 5 manufacturing facilities in Cleveland. So every year they had 2 jets, 2 Hawker Siddeley jets. These are the cream of the crop, plush leather, as you can imagine. And every year they take 5 or 6 people from Alberta, well, from all over the world, basically. But once a year, the Edmonton group puts together 5 guys that are key customers and takes them to Cleveland for 4 days. So one year they came to me and said, can you take this trip? You're the sales guy for golf for the whole field, and we like how you treat us. So I had to get VP approval. So they pick you up at Edmonton Airport, flew to Cleveland, put you up in a hotel, spend day 1 and day 2 touring all of their manufacturing, go for lunch at the Cleveland Country Club, which is ritzy, and their owner is a multi-billionaire. In those days, when I met him, this would be about 2004, 5, 6. He was a multi-billionaire, but he was 92. He's since passed on. He kept that company private right till the bitter end. He never, he didn't want shareholders or whatever. So then day 3, you fly to Niagara Falls, New York, take the bus over to Niagara Falls, Canada, tour the Niagara Falls facility. They put us up in a hotel right on Niagara Falls, spend the night there, and then day 4 you go on a meet and greet and then fly home. Like, who does that kind of stuff? Who would have thought that poor me, getting a job in 1983 building crates would 10 years later be flying to Cleveland on this. That plane that they had flown, Elton John had flown on it, the Queen Elizabeth had flown on it. So he loaned it when he had 2 of them, and they loaned one of them to kind of rich, wealthy people for short flights around the US, right? So who'd have thought that I would have had those kind of experiences, right?
Yeah, that is crazy, but you never know.
And then
or something will lead you.
I curled in Red Deer for 35 years on the Red Deer Curling Club. and they have a society called OTS, which is Oilmen's Technical Society, which has been around since the 50s. There's absolutely nothing technical about it, just a name somebody gave it in the 50s. So I have lots of friends. If you're in the sales or marketing, or you belong to that. So I get a couple of years ago, before COVID, actually, I got invited to a Flames game. OTS was putting a bus trip to Calgary to go to a Flames game, and there was 50 of us on the bus, and it was like $20 or something. And so we get on the bus, and it's full of beer and alcohol, and you get on the bus, you go down there, and the seats, so they bought 25 seats in one section and 25, both way up, as far up in the Saddle Dome as you could possibly get. And of course, I'm an Oilers fan, so I didn't really care about being there anyway. I was there for the social part of it. And I said to my two buddies that are with me, I'm going, man, I hate this. So I have a friend who's got a suite there. So I got my phone, I phoned him and said, like, have you got room for 3 guys? Because I'm here on this bus trip and I'm hating being up in the nose. He goes, yeah, go on, come to the suite. Well, in the Saddle Dome, the suites are open to the concourse. Where in Edmonton, they're closed off to a hallway, right? But in Calgary, they're open. So me and my two buddies go down to the suite, and we're sitting in there having drinks and free food. And the doors open, and one guy from our bus tour happens to walk by, and he goes, hey, you son of a bitch, what are you doing in there? I'm going, I don't want to sit up in the nosebleed sections with you poor guys. So before you know it, half the bus is coming. They're all walking by, peeking their head in the door. So as you can imagine, we got on the bus to go home back to Red Deer. Yep, we got an hour and a half and nothing but abuse because we were too good to sit with the rest of the guys on the bus. But I mean, those are the kind of things that that you just sort of. And I never took advantage of it. Like I would never just go to some event from somebody who I was never intended to do business with. I would never take advantage of a supplier. I would never take stuff that the company, we had pretty strict rules about what you could and couldn't accept. So so it was, but I did that a lot over my 30 years.
Lots of shenanigans.
There was lots of shenanigans. I'm going to tell you right now. I'm not proud of some of them. No, there was never anything like untoward like that. But some of the silly stuff you do when you have too much alcohol and there's too many oil field guys around. So
Yeah,
Exactly.
and so you can leave this part in the podcast. Like for me, the whole impetus for this has been to tell the story, right? But not just for me, but for you guys, because now you guys are, the way I see it, you're interacting and learning stuff about each other that you may or may not know as well, right? And so it's not just for my benefit. And I think it's really cool listening to you guys talk. And I know I do a lot of it sometimes because it's kind of who I am. But the reality is, I think we're all going to benefit from it. And Jaron said it previous one of the other episodes, like he'll be able to show his kids 10 years from now what we were like, what we were, what we talked about, and the kind of that kind of stuff. So